Hi guys, and welcome to the High Man podcast. It is episode 10, hosted by me, Kaylock, and Peter. Welcome back. We are today going to be talking about the dichotomy of living free in your 20s and then preparing for the long-term future. So we'll kind of explore both ideas. It kind of, I guess, it relates to instant gratification, the delayed gratification, maybe on like a longer term scale. But yeah, we'll kind of dive into that, see what we want to do ourselves in our 20s, what avenues we'd like to try and pursue, and hopefully give you guys a bit of advice and we give ourselves a bit of advice and see what we can do from there. So how you been doing, Pete? You all right?
Yeah, pretty good. It's 10th episode now, a bit of a milestone for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll just mention that for anyone that doesn't know, the podcast is on Spotify as well now. So the link will be in the description for that. So you can follow us on Spotify, give us a 5-star rating, and yeah, listen to the episodes without having to watch the video at the same time, which is quite good. So
Yeah. Spotify for me is the easiest way to listen to a podcast. You can download it as well.
yeah.
So if you got the premium, but pretty much everyone's got premium nowadays, don't they? So
Yeah.
you might as well.
Might as well.
But yeah, so should we dive right in, or is there anything that you want to update anyone on, or?
No. I mean, we can have a chat about what we've been doing. I mean, I've had another jiu-jitsu competition at the weekend.
Oh, yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah, when
Last
I'm
week.
right, I got bronze. So I won 2 matches, lost one. And even the match that I lost, I think I panicked a little bit and made some silly mistakes. So it was a little bit sloppy. I felt a bit sloppy on the day, but yeah. So
Yeah.
room for improvement. But now I think because I'm comfortable in the competition environment. I'm used to the way. I'm used to the pressure a little bit now. So going forwards, yeah, I'll be better in competitions, and also I think you learn a lot from competitions that you can carry straight into training. Uh, so yeah, it's good. So yeah, I'm fairly happy
How
with
did you
that.
do? If you don't mind me asking,
What was that?
how did you lose your last match? If you don't
It
mind me asking.
was by what was that? Footlock. I was passing his guard, and to be honest, I think if I just continued with a bit of pressure and passing, I would have been able to get past. But it was sub only, and he had more submission attempts, and I knew there was only a minute or two left, so I kind of panicked and went back for a footlock when I didn't have control, and then he footlocks me instead. So it's kind of a poor decision. And there are a couple of mistakes in that match where I thought, I don't know, because I watched his first match and he looks pretty solid. So I think I allowed myself to be a bit intimidated by that. When realistically, if I just played my own game, I think I would have won. But yeah, I've learned from next time not to kind of get in my head about my opponent and just try and put a solid performance on, regardless of what they're like. Because yeah, I think I'll get more wins that way.
Mm. Nice. All part of the learning experience, I guess.
Yeah. It's been good
Yeah.
competing. I think one of the biggest benefit I've noticed of competing is getting used to dealing with the pressure of the events. Um, just learning to deal with that mentally, because it's not too often in my life or probably in most people's lives, who put themselves in a situation where there's like direct pressure on them to perform. And I think that is not only helps you be better at jiu-jitsu or become a better competitor, but I think it also makes you like a more robust person, kind of linking to stoic stuff we were talking about in the last episode. Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Whenever I went to the competition, it was nerve wracking, but I kind of knew that the consequences of it were confined to that environment. Whereas I guess if you go to like a work environment, is it a little bit different? Where if you go for an interview, the consequences of you doing pretty badly in that interview aren't necessarily confined to that environment because it kind of does affect a lot of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand how some of those like nerves can be relatable to both situations. So if you get better at one situation in competition, it does make you better in the like an interview, for example. But I
Yeah,
don't know. I feel like with competitions, they are very confined just that environment.
yeah, and that's maybe a good mindset to have going into a competition because, like well, regardless of how the competition goes, my life is going to go on as normal. Um, and yeah, that perhaps in a different situation where the stakes are higher, you'd feel more pressure. But at the same time, I do think, like physically and mentally, it does kind of feel the same regardless of the pressure you're feeling when you're putting yourself through a sort of uncomfortable experience or situation. I do think has that effect of making you more able to deal with that, and I think there is crossover to different situations there. So and going into interview, obviously it's very different, but I think the nerves are the same because like being nervous is kind of a very physical thing. It's mental, but it's also physical. Like you feel it in your body. Your heart might be a bit faster. You feel slightly tense in a way, and being able to deal with those things is going to be the same regardless of what's causing that pressure.
Yeah, fair. That's fair enough. I guess if you have like if you kind of change your mindset when you go to like an interview and just almost make it the same as a mindset as a competition,
Mm-hmm.
then you can get over the nerves easier.
Yeah, and
That's
yeah, it comes back to like how we spoke about meditation and being able to uh, kind of detach from your emotions, and similar idea in stoicism, not being kind of dictated by your emotions because you can't, whether you feel those emotions or not, maybe you have some control over it, but maybe you don't. But being able to be somewhat detached from those emotions, and not be, and just be comfortable with being uncomfortable, sort of. I think, yeah, that definitely crosses over.
yeah. No, I agree on that. That's fair. But yeah, so talking about interviews in terms of careers and then like hobbies in terms of jiu-jitsu, or maybe I guess you could call that like a personal career, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, we're going to get into the dichotomy of living free in your 20s and preparing for like the long-term future. So kind of I guess the basis of the argument would be like if you're living free in your 20s, you're going to try and want to travel to different places for not a few years consecutively, but 20 to 30 years old, you maybe want to do like 6 months of traveling here and there, or prioritize living in another country for a few years, just experiencing the world and trying to really like find out what it is in the world that you love doing, where you love to go, what kind of people you love to interact with, and then opposing that is preparing for your long term future. Do you think it's possibly better to get into a steady career path that you can have a reliable income so you can save some money each month, invest some money each month, have that investment compound over time so you've got this huge lump sum when you're older, but that comes at the sacrifice of possibly, I guess, in like simple terms, just like boring your life a little bit. But it depends how you see it. So I guess, do you want to talk about starting your career early, or do you want to talk about traveling the world and kind of being a bit more wild in your 20s first?
Yeah, there's definitely this tension here, but and I feel like most people kind of have the belief that use your 20s, you should use your 20s to have experiences because you won't have the opportunity later on. So for example, the argument is as you get older you accumulate responsibilities, and those responsibilities will stop you from doing things like traveling and things like that. And then the other side of the argument would be that your 20s should be sacrificed. But a lot of people see that they think by the time they'll get to those 30s, 40s, whatever, that they'll look back and think, oh, I didn't enjoy myself whilst I could, and now I have all these things holding me down. So that I think that's the vision that a lot of people are afraid of. However, the way I kind of see it, and I feel like the people lot of the people I look up to and admire who are successful and maybe are slightly older do always give the advice that you should sacrifice your 20s for a better future, because a lot of people think, I think the typical way of thinking, as I said, was people think, oh, your 20s are the best opportunity for you to experience things. But I think if you invest your time in your 20s in the proper way, then you'll have opportunities later on which you never even could have got near in your 20s. So kind of an obvious example, a lot of people talk about this, is financially is an obvious example. So in your 20s, you might think, yeah, I don't have the responsibility, so I can go out and do whatever I want. But I've kind of come to think that if you sacrifice your 20s and you set up the right things for yourself, which will come from working hard and maybe saving money, like by the time you get to like 30, you have access to this kind of opportunities, to experiences that you've never, which are far exceeds maybe what you're capable of accessing in your 20s. What do you think about that line of thinking?
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting. I think it was like a year ago I looked at I heard someone talk. I saw like a little clip online, and it was referencing like if you invest this amount every month for the next 40 years, you'll get X amount. And then like I went onto Excel, did like a little like an index fund calculator, and I've got some actual figures here. I'm trying to find them. So like if you start, like let's say now, if you start with like an initial investment of £1,000, and then you made monthly contributions of £150, so that's 1,800 yearly. If you did that into like an index fund, and like let's say you get like a average compound interest rate of 8%, after 40 years, you would have only invested £49,600, but your investment would be worth 525 grand. And like £150 a month, it's not a lot, but it's quite a lot when you're just starting your career, because like when you just start your career, you're on lower wage compared to what you would be in 5 to 10 years. But if you're able to sacrifice going out, traveling on different holidays throughout the year, you could probably afford it. And then when you get to 40 years time, in 40 years time, you'd have a 525 grand. And then obviously, if you want, you could change that and like up the amount that you contribute each month, and then obviously the returns will be even bigger. And I do really like that way of thinking, because it provides like a bit of a safety net for when you get older. Like, it seems impossible to buy a house now, but if I'm investing this much each month, I'll happily rent for 20 to 30 years and then buy like my dream house when I'm like 50, 60.
Yeah.
So I do quite like that way of thinking. It just means you've got a bit of you've got a massive pot for a rainy day or a rainy week.
Yeah, and I think, I'll be honest, like when I think that way, like I don't that way of thinking doesn't really get me excited or motivated to go and do that. And I think this is kind of why, how I said people say experience what you can do in your 20s, because you might not get a chance later. Like if you go down, and I understand why they'd say that, when this is the alternative. So it's like, okay, you get to have your 500 grand or whatever, but you have to wait 40 years for it. But I just I don't think I don't think there's an argument to be had about whether that's worth it or not to sacrifice that much time. But kind of the way I see it more so is that so you could just have your job where your wage goes up gradually each year, and then invest a certain amount, and over time invest it into index funds, and it will gradually go up reliably. But I think more so about the idea of sacrificing your 20s isn't to necessarily gradually put money away into an investment that goes up slowly, but it's more so like if you're willing to make the sacrifices, then you can, well, first of all, the money you'll be making is far more. So you're saying like in 40 years you can have this much money. I
Right.
think like if you sacrifice 20 to 30 and you put that time into like building something for yourself and making as much progress as possible, then the position you'll be in by when you're 30, you'll already have access to opportunities that you would have never been able to afford if you decided to go out and have fun in your 20s and you didn't invest that extra time. Like by the time you're
Yeah.
30, you'll have a certain amount of money. It depends what path you go down as well. But I guess I guess the way I'm talking about it would suit more to go down more of an entrepreneurial path as opposed to a typical career path, or at least have some element of that where you have the potential to really explode your income, and
Okay.
that will give you these extra opportunities. So by the time you're 30, like you can do everything rather than spending 20 to 25 traveling and doing whatever you want. You spend 20 to 30 just investing all your time and your money, not necessarily into like actual investments like an index fund, but investing it into yourself and investing into building something for yourself, building your skills, building your career, building a business or
Yeah.
something. Like when you get to 30, like 30 to 35, rather, if you choose to delay that and then 30 to 35 you choose to have fun, then that fun 30 to 35 is going to be, you're going to have way more opportunities and way more access to do things, and you're not going to have to worry about money, and you can be relatively set at that point if you really do the right things, I think, earlier on.
Yeah. I know, I get what you mean now. Like just becoming like an Elon Musk, like Jeff Bezos, where you literally just work 60 to 70 hours, or maybe 70 to 100 hours a week of like just pure trying to learn a craft and master it, almost.
Yeah, I guess trying to become the best at what you do, and just so there's a discussion there about financially what's the best thing to do. There's maybe kind of three paths we've laid out. So the first one is you spend your early mid-20s whatever traveling, and then you decide to go on to a career later on, or you have one where you really sacrifice your 20s and try and then live that life in your 30s, and then there's maybe one where you wait until later on in your life and yeah, just invest in index funds and gradually get the money. So there's three options there. So it's kind of the financial part of it, but I do think there's actually maybe the more important part is it's kind of the meaning and fulfillment you'll get from each of the paths. So I'll let you talk about it. So what sort of richness and fulfillment do you think each of those different paths would bring to your life? So traveling versus investing in a career in the short and long term. What value do each of those things have?
When it comes to traveling, I think the meaning that it gives to your life, definitely in the short term and the long term, is that it gives you like a perspective and education about like the human experience, rather than an education about like a degree or a certain like field of study. Like being educated on what the world is and what it means to humans from different geographies and cultures. It sounds weird, but it's not really like, it doesn't really fulfill you in any way because it doesn't really have any like tangible benefit. But my dad's always said like the best education you can get in the world is traveling, and he's always like encouraged me to go traveling because he just thinks like it just enriches your life so much because you can experience how other people live and like just dive into these different cultures, and like for him it puts such a smile on his face, and it's not like a tangible thing that you can get. So short term, you obviously have the fun of just being in other countries and like different climates, being in like hot weather, then you're in the freezing cold, probably maybe. And then long term, I think you get like that enrichment and fulfillment of understanding what the human spirit is kind of all about. Whereas when it comes to investing like all your time into yourself and like trying to create your own empire, short term, well, I think it would probably depend on like if you believe in like the delayed gratification idea, like in the short term, you might be thinking, fucking hell, this is absolute hell. I'm working 75, 80 hours a week, trying to learn a craft, trying to make a business out of it, and trying to build this legacy for myself and my family. But if you enjoy that idea of delayed gratification, that and you fall in love with the process, then it can be very meaningful. But then I think long term, there's like a bit of a challenge of once you get to that point where you've set up this business, you've got to a point where you maybe want to sell it on or want to pass it down to someone else. You're older and you've completed your goal, and then your next goal would probably be, well, your next goal I'd say would have been formulated in your 20s when you were working towards it, and that would have been, I want to travel the world with no worry of what the cost is because I have all this money from selling my business. But when you get to that age where you sell the business at say 35, 40, 50, are you going to be in the mood to travel the world, or are you going to possibly have kids that you want to be around for? But I think that goal can become very the goal can become like it's the goal is formulated from the past. I don't know if it necessarily will be relevant in the future when you have the opportunity to act on it.
Yeah, I've a couple thoughts based on that. So first of all, I think there's a question of if you get to that point where, let's say you get to 35 and you've been really successful, and then you don't really care anymore about traveling. Like if you no longer think that's valuable enough to warrant doing, then was it ever that important in the first place to do you think?
Not true. Okay.
Like if you get to that age and you look back and think, like, I have the opportunity to do this now, but and I have the more access than I ever did before, but it no longer matters to me so much because I have these things I care about more. Like, would it have mattered? Like, would it matter to you missing out on that earlier in life?
No, that's a fair point, actually. Yeah, if you didn't, well, I guess would you? Are you kind of saying that eventually it would show that you didn't actually care about that thing in the first place?
Yeah, well, I guess it's just a question of, yeah, if you get to that point and you're satisfied, and the reason you don't want to do it is because you're more fulfilled doing any other things, would it have ever been worth it to forgo that? But here's the other side to it. So I kind of mentioned this before, that this is what makes a lot of people in their 20s think, yeah, I need to spend this time experiencing things because I won't get the opportunity later on in life, and because they accumulate responsibilities as time goes on. So things like you might get a wife and kids and a mortgage, and that's sort of like, once you have those things, you can't just fuck off and leave. But I kind of look at that and think, like, if you're mindful and conscious enough, like you get to 30, and if you're mindful about your decisions and you think there are certain things I want to experience before I settle down, then you don't have to settle down. I think a lot of people fall into that, and it's not necessarily a conscious decision. So they get a girlfriend and they end up, and maybe deep down they think, I haven't done everything I want to. I'm not ready for this stage of my life, but
Yeah,
they kind of fall into it because they're not. It comes back to maybe making a hard decision for the sake of a better life. Like, you might have to sacrifice that for now. But I also think, like, for example, with a girlfriend or whatever, like if you have invested in your own success, invest in building yourself into the best person you can be and building a good life. Like, by the time you get to 30, like, as a man, I think for women it's slightly different because there's a limit on their age to have kids. So as a woman, by the time you get into 30, it's like, how much longer are you going to wait? Because if you do wait any longer, then for one, it might be more difficult for you to find a man who's interested, and two, like, even if you do, like, once you get into your 30s, there becomes problems with fertility. Whereas for a man, like, you get to 30 years old, like, I don't think there's anything stopping you spending the next like 5, 6, 7, 8 years going out, doing whatever you want, and by the time you get to 38, you can decide to settle down, and you don't have to worry about not being able to have kids once you get to that age, especially if you've kept yourself healthy and stuff. Because I think what a lot of fertility problems for men probably come from bad lifestyle and not keeping themselves healthy. So especially if you're doing that, then you should be completely fine waiting till you're 35, 40 to do that sort of thing. And that comes back to, if you decide that that's important, like it's important for you to go out and do these things. Whereas you might get to 30 and think, you know what, I haven't done this traveling shit, but like I think I'll get more fulfillment out of having kids and stuff anyway. So maybe you could make that decision. But I think the only reason you get trapped into accumulating responsibilities that limit you from doing what you actually want to do is if you're not willing to make difficult decisions when the time comes, if you kind of let life take you rather than taking control of it yourself.
Yeah, people kind of fall into I'm 30, 35, society tells me I need to look for a future wife, look to settle down, get a house, have some kids. I think that viewpoint was more so valid in the past because like we weren't living as long, we didn't know how much time we would have on this earth, because like obviously death rates, life expectancy was lower. But nowadays, like with all of that information we have, like you were saying, like people can become healthy and stay healthy and like live and have like maintain a high quality of life for like their whole lives, or maybe for like a larger part of their life. So it seems like we've like almost, because of like advancements in health and well-being, we've like pushed back the need to settle down by a few years. I'd definitely say, oh, well, I'm not an expert, but I'd definitely say by the time you're like 45, you sort of want to have like a wife and kids. If that's what you want to have in life, then by that age, you should probably try and have those ticked off.
Yeah, and I think, well, like as I was saying, if you really put the work in and do the right things in your 20s, then you know probably by 30, 35 you'll be in a sorted position. So that's plenty of time to do whatever you want it to do. And it comes back to also, by that point, like if you've set yourself up well, then you'll have opportunities to do things in terms of traveling, obviously because you have more money. But I think more than that, because you've invested in your skills, like your build and your competence, like you'll be demanded in different places, so that there'll be opportunity to travel for work related things or other opportunities, which, because you've built up your value as a person in whichever ways you have, like that brings you extra opportunities. So it's not just a money thing, but it's also, you know, you've invested in yourself, so opportunities will come up to travel. And maybe the travel will just come out of like simply out of the opportunities you've built due to building up your own value. You won't necessarily have to, like at the start of your 20s, you work for a bit, you save up a few grand, and then you go and travel and blow it all. Whereas I think maybe if you put the time in early and then decide to travel later, then you can really, you know, the traveling doesn't even necessarily detract. It can actually build upon what you're already doing, but maybe you have to build up a certain amount of value, whether that be financially or just personal value, where, for example, if you're running a business or you're making good progress in your career, then they might ask you, oh, can you work at like you might have business trips out to wherever, and that's different experiences. But you're in that way, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, because you get to have the experiences whilst also progressing your career forward, which isn't just about the money. It's about, like, it brings you fulfillment working towards things and seeing progress and building upon that and moving things forward. So you kind of get, I think when you reach a certain level of value, you get to do both those things at the same time.
Right. And then one kind of the work pays for the holiday, so it's that's a double win, I guess.
Yeah.
What would you say about so let's say you work like extremely hard in your 20s and you kind of stress your body out and your mind out for X number of years to get to this to get to this higher status and this like point of wealth where you don't have to necessarily worry about the cost of things. What does this like the effect of stress and working for that amount of time have on your body compared to someone that kind of has like a menial job and like just invest a little bit each month? Like, do you think that stress that you put yourself through is going to have negative consequences in your later life compared to someone that just kind of finds like a general career and like takes their job seriously, but they try and find a work-life balance that more suits them?
Yeah, I think there's certainly an element of you take people with basically everything else the same. If one person's working 80 hours a week and the other person 40, the person working 80 hours a week are going to be less healthy. They're going to sleep less. They have less time to take care of themselves. They have less time to have a balanced life. But at the same time, so we kind of talked about sacrificing your 20s in terms of financially and working like, I don't know, more than the average person. But to be honest, when I talk about, it's not necessarily sacrificing your 20s, maybe that's too like extreme way to put it. I'd say making sacrifices in your 20s. But one of those sacrifices you would make is, for example, the person who chooses to travel and go out and experience and enjoy themselves far more in their 20s are probably going to have worse sleep. They're going to take less care of their health. They're going to drink and do drugs more. They're probably, where it's like when I talk about sacrifice and making hard but good decisions in your 20s, that doesn't just involve putting hard work in terms of career. It also involves investing in yourself in terms of getting enough sleep every night, going to bed early, waking up early, exercising a lot, like choosing to put your eggs in the basket of those things, and it comes, and that also comes back to a thing of meaning. So for example, like for me personally, like obviously all this shit I say is coming from my own personal perspective, which is related to my own goals. So like one of my own goals is to get good at jiu-jitsu and to get into better shape, and that shit brings me a lot of fulfillment. And I think as time goes on and I build upon those things, that'll give me more fulfillment. And if I were to just fuck off to and travel or decide that this is my last year of uni, so I'm going to go out and drink and have as much fun as possible, like am I going to look back in a year's time and think that was a good decision, as opposed to sacrificing the fun but choosing to invest in things that actually they do give me enjoyment as well? They're more difficult and you have to kind of make more sacrifices for them, but ultimately I think that gives me more fulfillment. So it's not just about your work and career, it's about investing, like you talk about having a balanced lifestyle. Well, investing in the balanced lifestyle but choosing to make sacrifices which do have long-term delayed gratification kind of benefits.
No, I think that's an interesting way to think about it. I didn't really explore that idea. And I guess like also devil's advocate to what I was saying is like you see like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, or like let's say like Warren Buffett, for example, he probably works fucking ungodly hours a week. But if he wasn't working like those hours and stressing his body out, like you could argue he'd be dead sooner. Because it seems like humans, for some reason, like when they stop working is when they start to deteriorate sometimes. Like you see it with people that go into like old people's homes. That's when they really like nosedive into like critical health.
Yeah, I think we need something to live for, and I do think when people, like for example, when people retire, like a lot of times I think their health deteriorates because they don't have anything to live for, or they don't have the same things, the little things every day to work towards.
Those meaningful those meaningful yet stressful tasks are sort of what keep us alive.
But then there's certain people like the people you mentioned, Jeff Bezos and whatever, who probably do work too much and stress themselves, and it gives their life a certain amount of fulfillment, but potentially they take it too far in expense for, they take the sacrifice so far that beyond just sacrificing, going out and having fun, drinking, doing drugs, going to bed late, watching TV, like these things which anyone could give
worth sacrificing.
Yeah, they also choose to go further enough with it where they're like, okay, I'm going to sacrifice my health I'm going to sacrifice my sleep more. I'm not going to exercise as much. So
Won't
that,
see my family as much.
yeah, not see your family as much. So they're taking the sacrifices even further. Whereas, I don't necessarily think taking it that extreme, perhaps for a stage of your life, that might be useful to really get things going. And maybe that's best to do in your 20s, where you can actually get away with a bit less sleep. You can kind of batter your body.
Right.
So maybe, and you have more energy. So maybe that's another argument to do that in your 20s. But on the note of that, so we kind of talk about this meaning to keep you going. I think this is something about traveling, which, there's different ways of doing it, but maybe the way typically most people decide to travel is they go out and they just go somewhere and they don't really have a goal or purpose behind that. Just to go out and explore and be free, which I think can have some benefits to it, but also some downside. What do you think of the benefits and downsides of kind of going out and just for the sake of being free and exploring?
I think there's maybe not necessarily a benefit, but I think there might be a desire to go out and travel for like X amount of months or weeks, because you're like truly escaping. You're truly escaping like the restrictions that society has put on you. Like if you work a job for a year and a half to 2 years and save up X amount of money, when you go traveling for 6 months, let's say, you're completely relinquishing yourself of like waking up early to go to work, all these like restrictions that you put on yourself, like, oh, I need to eat healthy so I can be healthy so my mind's right, so I can do my work well. And I feel like there's a desire to get away from that because people, but like I think there's a desire to get away from those restrictions because those restrictions are put on to an individual by someone else. Most people aren't choosing, like, not that most people aren't necessarily choosing their job. The job sometimes chooses them, and they kind of feel like their freedoms are taken away because they have to go to this job that they fucking hate and have to have work for a boss that's just a dickhead to them. So when they go traveling, they're just completely forgetting about that and becoming free. So I think that's possibly where the desire comes from, and I think there's a benefit to that, but that benefit can only be sustained if, like you said, there's a reason that they go traveling. Like if they go traveling to another country because it allows them to have a bit of R&R, like rest and relaxation from their stressful life. But it needs to also be combined with, can you learn a new skill when you're there, like a language, or are you going to somewhere that's clustered with the type of businesses that you enjoy and would want to work for, so you can try and make some network connections and all these sort of things. So yeah, I think that's probably why people want to go traveling.
Yeah,
in my mind, anyway.
Yeah, there's definitely that element of of freedom, stepping away, and I think in doing so, people can realize new possibilities through that different experience and through living life in a different way. Like you kind of mentioned there about how people can go traveling kind of aimlessly, and maybe for some people it would suit them. I mean, you can talk about this in relationship to like the big five personality traits. So someone who's very open and not particularly conscientious, they could actually find a lot of fulfillment in just going out and exploring and doing whatever, just following their interests, because the fact they're not being productive won't particularly bother them, and they'll be satisfying their curiosity from being an open person. So, there's obviously different for different individuals what they're going to enjoy, but I feel like I am quite like a conscientious person. Like if I were to just go away aimlessly, then maybe for a time I could have a certain amount of fun. Like I went MAGA and that was fucking great, but I went for 4 nights or 5 nights, and I probably wouldn't have wanted to go for any more because I just have things I care about more, and I wouldn't want to sort of sacrifice a long term any more than I did for that fun. I would say it was probably worth it to me for the experience, but it wouldn't want to be longer. So when I think about traveling, I think something which would be sick would be going to Thailand for a few months and indulging myself in like Muay Thai.
Okay.
Like obviously in terms of martial arts, I'm pretty interested in
Brazil.
yeah, go to Brazil or like California or something where there's loads of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, like some high level places to train, and spending a few months there and allowing that to kind of be the core of my experience. Or perhaps, you know, people have this goal in traveling. Well, I think one of the biggest reasons for traveling is kind of getting outside your comfort zone, and which kind of is slightly aimless because you're going somewhere maybe just to not be to be in situations you haven't been in before. So it's not particularly specific, but you can make goals to do certain things like, I don't know, but a lot of people don't want to make it so like the reason they're going away is for the freedom, so they don't want to make it so rigid, like they have to do loads of things. Just whatever you do, maybe try and push yourself to get the most of that experience rather than just, you know, doing the same shit you usually do, going out and drinking or whatever, just in a different country. Like perhaps you can get far more richness out of the experience by actually going there with a goal, and you can come back with kind of tangible progress you can see that you've made in yourself, rather than maybe the smaller benefit of just going away and doing something different for a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like myself included, people love going on holiday to go to a new country and experience all these new things. But all they do is just fucking drink, which is all they do at home as well.
Yeah,
It's like, why do you need to go to another country, spend all this money on flights and accommodation just to drink when you do that at home?
yeah.
I guess like obviously there is like a novelty to it. You can meet people from different countries, talk to them, hear some amazing stories that they have, and all these other things. But like, yeah, maybe
A lot of people just do the same shit but in a different place, and maybe that place
yeah,
is better for doing that thing. And you know, I can understand that. Like I said, I went MAGA and that was fucking awesome, but like it's not it's not like I don't look at my life in the long term and think, yeah, that's a really an experience I really need to prioritize going forwards, you know.
yeah,
Would I do it again? I probably would, but it's not, you know, I'm not going to sit here and say like, oh, it's going to change my life. Like it's such a valuable experience for my personal growth, because just going out there and having fun, which, you know, there's some value too. But, you know, we kind of spoke about in the delayed gratification episode how you don't necessarily have to, you can sometimes choose instant gratification, but I just don't, I think the overall vision for your life and direction of your life needs to be towards a long-term vision where you'll find meaning in working towards it, and you'll be working towards something that's valuable. So perhaps certain people who travel, they're traveling because they don't, to avoid the sake of having a goal, to avoid having to become something,
yeah,
rather than doing it to become more. They're doing it to
right.
avoid becoming more, and
They're
perhaps
trying to,
that's an important distinction.
yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it. People are kind of trying to push the how do you describe it? Like push into the future the need and necessity to start working on themselves by going on holiday and fulfilling themselves. Yeah, that's interesting. What would you think about like when it comes to something that becomes like when it comes to anything that's valuable, there has to be like a rarity to it. Like it can't be within reach at all times, otherwise it becomes unvaluable.
Yeah,
If someone just travels throughout their 20s for 3 months at a time every 2 years, let's say, is that going to give them more valuable memories than someone who travels once every 2 years for 5 days rather than 3 months? Because if you're just traveling for all these times, that becomes like a part of your life, and it doesn't necessarily become a singular event. Obviously, there are like singular events that happen within those 3 months, but could you argue it's more valuable for a person to work for 2 years and then travel for 5 days, and then they'll really remember every single moment of those 5 days, and there won't be any blurriness to it. They'll be like, you know, that was made, or maybe let's say 2 weeks, because 5 days quite short. So, but like 2 weeks, so you can get like enough like done in in the time frame. Like, what would you say is like kind of more valuable over the long term?
Yeah, it's interesting how you say like that scarcity is important because I spoke about going to Maga and I also went to Boomtown over the summer, and those were very fun experiences. But there was moments where I kind of just sit there and thought, like, this is accessible to anyone. Anyone can come and do this. It's nothing. There's no scarcity to it. There's no work you have to put in to get here to this point. You don't really have to build your value up at all as a person, and it's a fun experience. But I talk about how if you invest in yourself, both financially and into your health and just into everything and making the right sacrifices in your 20s, then when you get to your 30s, you can go out and do things which you wouldn't have had access to before, and that brings that scarcity and value.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think that's another reason why that is sort of a for lack of a better word, like an emptiness and just pursuing fun, which is really accessible. Um, but yeah,
why do
let's go. Sorry.
so why does the accessibility matter to you? Like, what I was trying to explain was if you just do it so infrequently that it becomes scarce. Do you think that things that are more inaccessible are more valuable? I understand why, but do you think that kind of becomes like a competitive mindset? Like, oh, well, I'm going to Dubai where it's 10 grand a night and only the top 1% of the population can do that. So it becomes more valuable and more meaningful. Do you think that's a bit of a like trap that people fall
Yeah,
into? Or
yeah, perhaps it is because like if it's less accessible, then it's more scarce, and then if it's more scarce, then it's more valuable. But that's not actually necessarily always true. Just because something's difficult to attain doesn't mean that it's good. It
yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, I guess in a way it brings it value, but will it really bring fulfillment? Not
yeah.
necessarily. Um,
And just because
yeah, I
something's
do
like
understand that.
accessible to other people doesn't mean it has no value.
Yeah, just the accessibility. Yeah, I made that point. So like in Boomtown or Mag or whatever, I thought like anyone can do this, which made me feel like it was less meaningful, and less special, and that there was more out there because a higher thing to be doing would be doing something which did require work to attain, which is kind of like how I talk about as you build your value up as a person, perhaps on business trips or whatever. If you have a meaningful career and you're going out traveling somewhere for the sake of your career and working towards something, and perhaps in that traveling you can also have the fun experiences, then you'd be getting both. And but yeah, in terms of scarcity, I guess it being inaccessible doesn't necessarily give it value, but I guess it
I guess it.
opens. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, I guess it doesn't necessarily give it value by itself, but the fact that as a person you've worked so hard to be able to attain that really, really rare experience. The experience itself doesn't necessarily give you value, but the fact that you've worked towards it and worked more than other people and built yourself up is what makes that experience more valuable. So
Yeah,
it kind of indirectly gives you that value, but without that inaccessible experience, there is no value. But that's due to your hard work, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah.
Not
That's
necessarily, it's not necessarily like a competitive thing, like, oh, this is more valuable because like all you fucking dickheads can't even get to it. It's more so like, oh wow, I've actually worked so hard that I can attain this amazing experience.
yeah. I think that's definitely an element to it, and just in terms of accessibility, like if you think about it, um, like I'll use some numbers here because it will allow me to demonstrate your point. So as you build up your value and become more successful, you have more opportunities. So for easy numbers, let's say you have it before you like at the start of your 20s or whatever, before you've built any value, you have 10 opportunities. And then when when you have built up your value, you have 100 opportunities, completely arbitrary numbers, but it's just demonstrating even if there was no relationship between the accessibility and the value, let's say across the board, regardless of the accessibility of the experience, 10% of them were really fulfilling, then just the fact that you've opened up your opportunities. So now that you have 100 total opportunities, you'll have 10 total opportunities, which of the 10%, so 10% are valuable. So you'd have 10 opportunities, whereas a person who never went out to build up their value would only have one opportunity from their 10 opportunities. So that's even regardless of whether accessibility relates to fulfillment, just the fact of having access to more opportunities will give you more it will allow you to access more fulfilling opportunities as well.
Yeah.
So even if there was no relationship, then you would have more access. But I do think there's some relationship, and perhaps it's not as direct as I kind of made out at first. But I do think when something's difficult to attain, it's often more fulfilling if it's a more niche experience that you personally have built yourself up to the point where you have access to it. Then I do think you can access maybe not every experience, because for example, you mentioned going to Dubai and paying 10 grand for a hotel or whatever. Like that's maybe an experience that doesn't really add that much more fulfillment. But I think as you do build your value, you do get access to these more niche things where it maybe has more meaning to it rather than just the baseline. Anyone with a few hundred quid can go and have this experience.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But perhaps it's also related to, because I mentioned like if it's a business trip, it might be more fulfilling if you're in a meaningful career and you have this trip, so you get to have the travel experience, but it's also progressing. Like perhaps that is one of the significant like more niche experiences I'm talking about, which you'd only have access to had you given up your value. I don't know if what I said just makes sense. Not the last sentence, but you get the point.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. But then I guess like maybe linking back to when we talked about meditation, do you need to work towards something where you can just enjoy the simpleness of life? I guess like is I don't know if there is or has been, or if it's even possible. Has there been any like studies like with relation to the big five personalities? Like what percentage of people are just content in working like a standard job and saving a little bit of money? What percentage of people are going to be like these true innovators in the world, and like the Elon Musk types, Steve Jobs types, Kanye West types, where they just work extremely hard and create these empires that impact millions of people? And then what percentage of people are just going to become, for lack of a better word, like low lives, where they just fucking have a shitty job, spend all their money on fucking going out and drugs and drink? But I wonder if there's been any studies on that.
Yeah. Well, in terms of, I mean, there's obviously a correlation between like success, like and conscientiousness, for example. So more conscientious people are more successful. But then you're sort of talking about, well, are they more? Does that actually make them more happy? And the answer is it varies to individual to individual, because it comes back to the personality as well. So if you've got a really conscientious person, but they're low in extroversion on big five traits, so they have less positive emotion and they're high in neuroticism, then that person's probably they're probably not going to be as happy as the person who is lower in conscientiousness, has a less successful life, but has a lot of positive emotion and is also low in neuroticism just by nature. Like, will they be less happy? Yeah. But it kind of comes, I think in a previous episode, we actually spoke about how, like, should you base, like, what's more important, the the happiness you feel, or even the fulfillment that you feel, versus aiming to create something or to do the biggest good in your life. I think it was in some conversation about like the higher man kind of concept. Like, is it better for a low conscientious person, even if they'll be happy doing fannying about, doing whatever, not having much, making much progress, would it be still better for them to make the sacrifices for the sake of pursuing this kind of unifying life goal, which is expected of the higher man? Like, is that still the better thing to do? Maybe taking happiness or even like personal fulfillment out of the equation, is it still the right thing to work towards, the biggest attainable thing, to delay that gratification for yourself and other people, even if it's not what your personality lines up with? So maybe it's not really an answerable question. It's kind of an ethical debate there.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I remember talking about that now, actually. Like, if you force a low conscientious person, or the person you would describe, like if you force them to self-actualization, is that better? Is that worth the sacrifice of them?
Yeah, or or if they thought, would it be right for them to force themselves to? Because
that was it. Sorry, not us force them.
Yeah, but would that be the right thing to do? Which kind of leads us down a completely different subject. But there was something else you mentioned there, kind of about meditation and being able to enjoy like the smaller experiences. And I've got kind of enough different jump off point to that, which is like another example of a way that you'd be investing in yourself during your 20s is by not pursuing pleasure and by investing time into things like meditation, so that you actually do get the joy there. So it's not this, I guess the right thing to do in terms of sacrificing, it's not necessarily working 80-hour work weeks, whether you want to or not, sacrificing everything else. It's you get to make decisions based on what you actually think will result in your own betterment, the betterment of your life, or to the betterment to other people. So investing time into something like meditation, that's something in the long term which is going to make you more happy and more fulfilled. And it's not necessarily it's kind of a sacrifice. You need to put a certain amount of time into that, and a certain amount of effort in order to kind of build that habit. So that's an example of, I guess it kind of demonstrates the point that it's not about arbitrarily sacrificing your 20s to work towards something that you don't really care about. It's about making good decisions and making sacrifices based on what will actually give you long-term happiness. Because if you sacrifice for that, then I don't, and you do the things to optimize that, then I really don't think you'll look back on that time and think, I would have rather been doing something else, if your life is so much better now because you've been doing that. So that's maybe the whole point I was making. So it's not so much about that. Maybe that is an element you could argue, you should just fucking smash out 8 hours of work and be absolutely set by the time you're 30. But more so the I guess a more important fundamental point is making good long-term decisions for your fulfillment, and making that your priority over prioritizing fun experiences, because you're doing things so that you're happy and you're happy in the future. You're not trying to do things now because you don't think you'll be able to in the future. So you're like, the only time I can be happy is now, so might as well spend the next 10 years maximizing that, rather you're thinking, let's take a step back and what can I do to ensure in 10 years I'm as happy as possible. And perhaps for some people, they do need to go through a phase of partying and traveling and chasing women or whatever the fuck, and to get that out their system, and that is an argument for that. But I think this more kind of long-term focused approach is generally better, in my opinion, at least.
Do you think maybe Okay, so let's have a look at your life. Like, what would you think would work best for you? We don't ask you about specific details, but would it be finish university, spend 2 years, spend a year working, go travel around for a year, just fucking be wild for a year, and then come back and just dial in on what you love, or dial in on what you think will give you fulfillment in the future, and do that for 10 to 15 years? Or are you going to kind of finish uni, go straight into working towards a long-term goal? Like, what kind of like system would work best for you?
Big questions, and they're hard to answer questions. And you know, I don't. The answer is really that I don't know. And I think when you think about super long-term visions, like it's very difficult to know what's right. But I think what I've been trying to do recently, at least, is focus just on what's in front of me. So obviously I have these long-term goals and there's things that I'm working towards, but I'm focused on like working on the things in front of me, rather than trying to make a big decision. Oh, should I go traveling straight after uni or in 2 years, or should I just go straight into a career? Like, these are hard decisions to make, and it's probably not actually a right or wrong decision there. But I think I'm focused on, so I have a certain number of goals. Like, obviously I want to do well at uni. My plan is to have a graduate job sorted for when I graduate. I've been training jiu-jitsu. Like, that's one of the goals which is most important to me, to get good at jiu-jitsu. Go to the gym, trying to get in better shape. Obviously we've got the podcast. Like, this is something that we've been working on, and I think, I hope we continue to do this and it carries on. And we're just working towards these different things and just trying to make good decisions where, like, certainly, like, in, let's say, I feel like if I don't, in 5 years time, if I just carry on doing these little daily things that I'm doing and trying to make the most of each day, and obviously considering things on a longer term basis, but even if I were to just try and just do everything in the next day to improve my life and to build value, like, in 5 years time, I don't think there's any way I look back and think, oh, I wish I fucked off and went to Thailand for a year to go and, I don't know, do whatever you do. Not to say that would be a wrong decision, but I would regret not making it if I made such good progress, and there'll be opportunities to do that. Hopefully, I think if you do make good decisions, then there will be opportunities there to do things like that. But ultimately, I'm less focused on, like, traveling, for example, than more progression. Like, progression matters more to me. Will I travel? Yeah, probably at some point. But I think centering my life around my progression and progressing towards each of these little goals that I've got in different areas of my life is a better thing to base my life around, rather than thinking, oh, I'm just gonna fanny around and then I can't wait till I travel in a year, and then travel for a year. Maybe it's a great experience, whatever, but I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts on it at the moment. What are your thoughts for your career? What you want to do the next few years?
Um, I've got a question for after the while. I'll say
Yeah,
my
yeah,
idea, and I've got a question for you. So not I haven't got a long term plan, but just try and get uni done. Hopefully, do well enough in it, and then have some money saved by the end of it. Or if not, if I don't have enough, work a little bit, and then me and Sam from back home want to go try and move to America and live there for like 6 months.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
It might end up just being like a holiday, but the last few weeks I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking, like, when I saw my uncle who lives there, he was saying, "Oh man, if you do well in like your degree, like people in America are looking to hire people with business degrees and all these sort of things." And I was like, it's quite interesting. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea of actually moving to America for 3 or 4 years at a time, like 3 or 4 years, and working for a company. So maybe when I'm there on my travels, try and make some connections and actually dive into the lifestyle of what it is to be American.
Mhm.
That's the short term 3-4 year plan, and then after that, I don't necessarily have a plan, but I've just got some things in life that I want. I want to have a nice house when I'm older. Not necessarily a nice house, but like a house that I just enjoy being in. Like a nice kitchen would be fine. If I had like a standard house with a nice kitchen, I think I'd be all right. And then I want to have a dog, but obviously that restricts you on where you can go and what you can do sometimes, unless you've got loads of money. So they're the things I sort of want in life. But I don't know. I don't really see. So right now, I don't really see the value of trying to have a huge plan. Like there's a lot of graduate jobs that are going up and being advertised at the moment, and like a lot of the registration for them and applications are closing by start of November. And like a few of my mates at uni are talking about, oh, and you're going to apply for these consultancy firms, and I'm just thinking to myself, that's just too far in the future for me to even care about.
Yeah.
Right now, which might be a mindset I've come to regret, but
I kind of feel the same way actually. Like when I look at like I've obviously we both graduated this year. I've been having a look at graduate jobs as well and thinking about what I'd want to do with my future. Like it does kind of scare me thinking like I go on a graduate job. And it's a weird thing, but I see like they're talking about the benefits and they're talking about like a pension scheme and shit. I'm like, fuck me. Like it, I don't know. So thinking like, okay, really, am I going to be doing this and am I going to get this job and be doing this still in 15, 20 years? Like, is that really what I want? And, you know, in moments I question that. So I'd say I'm the same as you in that I don't have a specific long-term plan, but what I'm focused on now is, I guess I'm just trying to optimize for like self-improvement and trying to build my own value and work towards the goals which are important to me right now, like getting good at jiu-jitsu and
yeah,
and I'm at uni, so I want to do well at uni and see, you know, what I can learn and invest in that side of things. And you know, there's a variety of things like the podcast. Like we never know what could happen with the podcast. Like this is something I enjoy, and I think it's yeah, it's pretty sick having a podcast. To be fair, I've quite enjoyed it. So
yeah.
yeah, just investing time into that and trying to make the podcast as good as possible and just focusing on these little things one at a time. And you know, I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years and thinking about, oh, am I going to be in this certain career in 10 years still? Like it kind of does scare me a little bit, but I think at the moment I'm just maybe not thinking about that too much. I do think about the long term, but more than that, I'm just thinking day by day, what am I doing to improve? And I think if you invest in your improvement, then good things will happen. You delay gratification. We spoke about this in the delayed gratification episode, how you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know the benefits you'll get. Maybe
Yeah,
you don't get the benefit you expect to get, but it brings up opportunities that you didn't even realize existed.
yeah,
So I'm just trying to, yeah, that's what I'm focused on. You know, I don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I'm trying to put my eggs in the right basket into improving and building upon things, making progress in different areas. And you know, I have faith. It's a decision of faith because you don't know, but I have faith that will materialize into something good. So yeah, I
yeah.
don't really have a clear vision either, but you just got to
No,
choose
it's not.
to invest.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Maybe at any stage in your life, if you're like you were saying, working towards the things that you value at the moment, it doesn't matter what you're doing or where you are in life, because eventually things will come to you, I guess. But yeah, a question I had before my answer I gave. When it comes to traveling, like I said earlier, I think I might change my mind. I said earlier, I feel like people go on these long stints of traveling because they're trying to escape the confinements of what reality and society puts on them. I also think like people go traveling to like find themselves as the classic example. Do you like the question for you? Do you think it's easier or it's more conducive to find yourself traveling, or do you think like going through the daily tasks of just grinding and really like pushing yourself to the limit in those terms helps you find yourself? Like, which one do you think helps you find yourself more, or does it depend on the person, I guess?
You know, my response to that is, rather than finding yourself, I think I'm more interested in building myself. Like,
Right.
I think if you go out in search of trying to find out who you are, maybe some people have success in that, but I get my intuition on that is that you can't. I don't think you find who you are. I don't think you're necessarily this set person, and I think people, if you go searching outside yourself to find out who you are, then it can ultimately lead to a form of emptiness. And maybe that's not true for anyone. And maybe it's not true for me. Maybe I would benefit from going out and experiencing shit. But more so, I think, yeah, you build who you are. You get to choose who you want to be, and and if you put work into becoming who you want to be, then that's probably a better strategy than finding yourself. What's your opinion on that?
No, that's put really perfectly. I've never really thought about. I've thought about that there's a problem with people like when they try and self-diagnose themselves. If they've got like something that's wrong in their life, they kind of look to these gurus online and they try and find out what the problem is. But like in doing so, they kind of create a new problem of forgetting that they can just work on the small things in life that add up to what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
I think you put it perfectly well. I think was it you're not necessarily trying to find yourself, but you're trying to build yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess it doesn't matter where you find it. I guess when it comes to that, if that's true, it wouldn't matter where you find yourself, because if you're always building yourself, then you're going to be going forward and upwards, and progress is going to be made, even if you find yourself at the very bottom or if you find yourself at the top. If you're continuously building, then you're always going to be in a better position.
Mm-hmm.
So then, well, if that's true, then what's the point of going on holiday ever?
There's an argument to be had for that. I think because I've heard this argument for kind of going on holiday. Like, people talk about kind of having a balanced life, but I think there's an argument that this balanced life idea, like if you really love what you're doing and you find so much meaning in it, then you might be limiting yourself by trying to have a balanced life. You might actually be less fulfilled than going all in for something. And I think with holidays, people go on holiday to, not necessarily all the time. I don't want to be like harsh on people and make like a blanket statement about this, but they go on holiday to like escape their lives. That, like, why would you have to escape your life if you were fulfilled with it already? Maybe that's a bit of a harsh assessment of going on holidays. Same people trying to escape their lives, because perhaps it could be a thing of like instant versus delayed gratification. Like, a certain amount of time, it is okay to have instant gratification, as long as, like, most of the time you're not. So maybe you don't have to take it all the way, and pursuing a different type of experience, sitting in the sunset, sitting in the sun for a couple of weeks. Some people get a real joy out of that. But yeah, but back to actually, so I kind of spoke about building yourself rather than trying to find yourself. And I haven't read the book, but I've heard people talk about it. Book by Carl Newport. What's it called? He's
Deep work.
so good they can't ignore you, which is basically,
Oh,
it's about, rather people try and find their passion in life, when in reality there's probably a plethora of things that you could enjoy had you pursued. But the way you don't, there's not necessarily a set passion that you need to find. You build your passion by, like, committing to something and getting good at it, and at that point you can start to find fulfillment and become engaged in it. But that's just searching some big thing where you're like, right, this is it, this is what I need to do. And maybe there's more elements to finding yourself in that. I think, putting yourself in different situations, meeting loads of different people, can maybe bring out a side to you that you didn't know before. and experiencing. And if you're traveling and you think I want to try as many things as possible, and you're actively going out and engaging in things, then you might think, this is actually pretty cool. I might try and commit to this, but so perhaps there is actually some value in that. But yeah, you asked me the question about like finding yourself, and yeah, I prefer the idea of building myself, and what needs to be found, I'm sure will be found on the way.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
So does Cal Newport kind of suggest you could dive into something that you maybe don't necessarily initially enjoy, but if you become like a master of it, eventually you'll become fulfilled by it?
Yeah, no, like I said, I haven't read the book. I probably will at some point, but yeah, I think that's the general gist of it. That yeah, by choosing something and getting good at it is how you begin to enjoy things and be engaged in things, not just straight off the bat.
Yeah, I guess would you have to choose something that you have a decent understanding and level? Like, do you have a decent understanding of, and you're like at a good enough level to start with? Like, I don't think I could choose to be like a pianist because I've just never done it.
Yeah, I guess it needs to be something that's in demand, and like if you're trying to do it to make money, then it needs to be something that people pay people to do. You can't just
right.
I can pretend to be, I don't know, like I don't know, just something that no one will pay you for, like
Sean Connery impersonator or something.
it's like skimming stones or something. You're like, yeah, I'm going to become a master of it. But to be fair, nowadays you could probably just you can probably do. Kind of brings us into actually a different topic, which you had written down, which is like what sort of business would either of us set up like going forward. And I feel like nowadays you really can pretty much do anything. Like I said, a stone skimmer there, because I was trying to think of something like is it skimmer? Is that the right word? Of skipping stones, like you throw them on the river. You know what I'm trying to say?
Skipping. I mean, it's skipping, yeah.
Yeah, but basically, like if you're sick at that, you can build up a following, whatever.
Yeah.
And people, and you can maybe teach people, and like there's probably an avenue to make money there if you can build an audience, which is coming to kind of what business would you start. I think one of the biggest ones nowadays is whatever form of content creation, which is kind of what we're doing here. But creating content and building an audience. Like if you have an audience, I think there will always be opportunities to monetize that. So that's a big business idea.
Yeah, well, so is that the sort of business that you think you enjoy? Is this content creation and having a following, or?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy making the podcast. I guess this is a business. I mean, we haven't made any money from it, but we've got like a brand, that type of thing. Like it's something. It's that type of thing, and who knows where it will go as we continue to do these episodes and grow the podcast. Like, and yeah, I think for me, I quite enjoy this, and hopefully this podcast goes somewhere. And if it doesn't, maybe I'd even just like start a YouTube channel or something. Like I quite enjoy just talking about these ideas, and I'm sure there's a market for it because it is quite relatable, a lot of these things to people. And I think a lot of it's quite useful. Well, it's been useful for me, it's discussing these ideas and coming across the ideas which I end up discussing. Like those things have been valuable to me. And I think it's pretty good. What are your thoughts on kind of businesses? Would you set up a business in the next few years? Like what sort of business would you be interested in?
I don't know. I've always kind of been maybe not necessarily like scared of, but a bit wary of setting up in a business because I just know like it just takes away your work-life balance, and like that's one thing that I value, because if I've got a good work-life balance, that means I've got time to go training, get better jiu-jitsu. Then I've got time to just kind of relax and see my friends and see the family. Whereas when you set a business up, you kind of tie down to that business, and that becomes your highest priority.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like there is obviously a work-life balance even if you are a business owner. Like I think I'll just get wary of it because I see like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos who work like ungodly hours a week, but not every business is like that. But my business, I've obviously set one up. I don't know. I've been interested in the idea of like consulting because I'm doing that as one of my modules this year. Like that's like my big group project this year, which is kind of what my dissertation is. It's not, we don't have a dissertation that like our dissertation is this consultancy project.
Right, yeah.
We've got a big portfolio and we've got to work for an actual business. I like the idea of consulting because you get to travel, you get to interact with people. But then like, as we've been learning about consultancy, we've been kind of learning about the drawbacks of it and like the negative like media reporting on it and why it's kind of a bit of a shady industry or whatever.
What is that?
So then I'm a little bit
involve consultancy?
It basically involves going and giving businesses advice, and like it used to be, well, not used to be. It's you can specialize in like usually it's like financial advice, like auditing, doing things like that. But there's been like a bit of a big public outcry that consultancy has just become management. Like a lot of businesses have taken away the amount of middle level managers that they have, and then they just outsource it to consultants. The consultancy is about collecting all this data and giving advice to the client, and then the client makes a decision. But a lot of people think that the consultancy firms collect all this data, give the knowledge to the client, but then sway the decisions that they make. So it's almost like the consultancy firm making the big decisions and have all the power. But then there's people that argue the other way. I'm not really diving into it in too much detail yet. But I like the idea of consultancy because you get to interact with people, even though I'm a bit of an introvert.
Businesses. I guess it's just like a business will hire you to help them out in whatever niche you choose to help them, whether that be financial or whatever other areas there are. But yeah, you just now businesses, and obviously there's be a big market for that.
Yeah, it's a huge growing industry that's always going to be in demand. But I like the idea because you get to interact with people and then you get like the opportunity to travel, hopefully. But I don't know, it's weird. Like, I do like the idea of like owning a small business and employing people. Like when I've got a job this year in third year, and the guy Colin who owns it, he owns like 4 or 5 other like hospitality businesses, and like learning like about business and uni and all these other things and hearing about it online, like people kind of disregard like the meaning that one person has in so many people's lives. Like if Colin wasn't alive and wasn't the person who invested and set up these businesses, then there's at least 10 of us working at his business where I work, and there's probably like another 30 or 40 people and all the other ones all together. They wouldn't have jobs. Obviously they might find other jobs, but it just amazes me how this one person can like, it's not necessarily control these people's lives, but like give them opportunities to make money and like do things. So I like that idea of just making a business and like, having like a second family almost.
Yeah, because you're taking on a lot of responsibility there, but like you said, you're offering people opportunities and you're having a good impact on people's lives, and you're building something for yourself. I mean, it's a good thing, but obviously a lot of responsibility, but that comes with fulfillment that you get from that.
Yeah, I remember like Michael, he was saying he'd love to set up his own, like have a massive van and have loads of mats in it, and he'd love to set up like an on-the-go jiu-jitsu coaching business.
Oh, that'd be cool, yeah.
Which would be fucking sick. Like we had I was in training the other day and I was just talking to my coach and we were just talking about like training and stuff, and like we were just like he was just chatting like, oh, I don't really get soppy in that, but sometimes I'm just driving home and I'm just like, wow, this is amazing. Like, I've just got so many students that like I'm able to teach and like help them become these better people, and I was just like, yeah, mate, you've created a legacy. Like everyone in this community is just so lovely, and like him having it's a business to him, but it's not he's not doing it for the financial reasons. He's
Yeah.
just doing it for the love of it. I think that's the sort of business I'd want to be in.
Yeah.
If I was to set one up, it's doing it for the love of it rather than the
Yeah.
money.
And you think about that, maybe you like there's a couple thoughts that gives me. Firstly, like, so that's maybe an example of how investing in your improvement, you having that goal. So obviously he committed to getting good at jiu-jitsu, and that's an opportunity that it brought up. So you get meaning along the way, just progressing in jiu-jitsu, but also creates opportunities for you. And I also think with that, it comes back to a point. So like let's say you went down a similar path to that, and you really just committed your life to getting really good at jiu-jitsu, and then setting up an academy, or perhaps you'd spend a certain amount of time working a job just trying to make money, saving it all, and then investing in the academy. Let's say you get to like 35, and that's what you've got. Are you going to look back and think, oh, I wish 20 to 25 I went traveling more? Like, are you going to regret investing that time in to building this thing, where you now obviously you've created this responsibility and maybe this thing that ties you down in some ways, but the amount of fulfillment you get from that, I don't think anyone in that position would say, I regret going down this path.
Yeah,
and,
I completely.
Yeah,
I completely agree, but it's difficult to say in 10 to 15 years' time you won't regret it. Whereas in 10 to 15 years' time, I don't know what the fuck's going to be happening in my life or what's going to be happening in the world. So I'm not going to be able to guarantee that I'll be in this position of being able to look back from a nice point of view because I'm enjoying the amenities of being successful.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that sacrifice is worth it because I don't know what that sacrifice is going to lead to.
You don't know if the sacrifice will pay off.
Yeah, but then like I guess opposing that, the sacrifices you make now will inevitably lead to a better position, won't they?
Perhaps it's not inevitable. Perhaps it's not 100% guaranteed. Maybe it won't, but it's that it's a decision of faith. You need to, you can say, and that's an argument people make. They're like, well, I don't know what the facts can be, what the fact the world's going to be like in 15 years, and I don't even know if all these things that I'm doing will benefit you. That's the side of delayed gratification that it's a sacrifice you make because you don't know. You need to have. It's about having faith that your sacrifices will pay off. And having faith, it kind of links to an idea of having faith in like a higher power or God, or it wouldn't even need to be God in this context. Your faith could be just in the structure of reality that if you make sacrifices, then they will be rewarded. Like that's you can trust whether that will happen or you can't trust, but yeah, it's a decision, and perhaps you can't fault so much someone who doesn't trust in that, but I don't know. I look at it and I think, yeah, I have faith that the sacrifices will be rewarded. Maybe they won't, but I know like which person I'd put my money on to have a better life in 10 to 15 years, but it's not guaranteed, isn't it? So
yeah, I guess we could easily get into a whole podcast episode about faith, and is it like something that is worth believing in even if you don't have a true belief in it? Maybe.
Yeah, that'd be a wicked episode. That would link a lot into, because I do bring up quite a few like biblical stories.
Lessons learned.
Yeah, they demonstrate certain points. And yeah, we can kind of link that into having faith. What it means to have faith. That'd be a cool episode.
Yeah, the benefits, and then possibly surely there's some drawbacks to it and all that.
Yeah,
so explore that as well.
There's always a price to be paid. Choose when to pay it, now or in the future.
Yeah.
That's the tension between instant and delayed gratification. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think if it turns, to be fair, I remember talking to, I think I don't know, it was Sam. I think it might have been you as well. We were like, it'd be amazing for us to set up a business. Like, Sam will do the marketing side of it. I'll do like the business operations, and then you'll do the engineering and like designs and all this shit,
Mm.
and just all that whatever. So I think that'd be fun actually. If I was to set up a business, it'd be more worthwhile to me if I was to do it with someone I cared about, like a friend or shit like that.
I mean, we're doing the podcast, aren't we?
Well, yeah, this is why it's so nice.
Yeah.
But do you think like if it was like an actual business, like you guys set up like a bar or like bought a restaurant, do you think that that can put a lot of constraint on? I mean, a lot of strain on the relationship. Sorry.
Yeah, I think it certainly can. I mean, I don't have any personal experience with that, but it does seem as if when money involved and when the stakes are high, that can affect people's friendships. But yeah, so what do you think? Do you think would it ever be enough to ruin a friendship? Because I think for a lot of people, it actually, like people who start businesses together, that potentially does end up ruining friendships. Do you think that's
I think
likely?
it's completely dependent on the person, or the people involved. But that like, so you got two people. One person is very level-headed and mature and kind of look past the failings of the business, and disregard them when it comes to the nature of the relationship they have with their friend. And I think that can work if both people are like that. I think there is a risk though, where even if one person's very level-headed and look beyond the business and value the relationship that they have with their friend for what it is, if the other person is like so spiteful that they failed in the business and they can't look past that to the friendship, it can probably be like a losing battle for the level-headed person to save the relationship, because it's a two-way street. If one person's just going to try and crash into you, even if you try and like get out of the way, like the relationship's going to be severed.
Yeah.
Then it's just like choose your partners wisely, I guess. But then there's the argument like, even if you've got a best friend that you've had for 10 years, you go into business with them. Like there's that great quote by Lord Acton: power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Like as the business gets more successful, you get more money. Do people get more greedy naturally? Do they get more resentment towards the people that become a little bit more successful than them? But let's say if you had a 55% stake and the other person had a 45% stake, if there was like £1 million, if there was like 100 grand profit, you're getting 10 grand more. But if it's £1 million profit, you're getting 100 grand more. And that's a bit of a big difference. So as you get more successful, is the person going to become more susceptible to like the evils of business, I guess.
Yeah. And yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. Like, just because you're really good friends with someone doesn't necessarily mean you'll be good business partners. And obviously, like, it's impossible to know. Once again, it comes back to a decision of faith. Do you choose to have faith in this person? And do they choose to have faith in yourself? Because maybe you're just as, inexperienced and inadequate as they are, but you choose to trust in each other and you don't know where that's going to go.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's certainly a risk. There's always a risk, but yeah, perhaps it's worth it. And obviously, it's great if it works out, and if not, perhaps
Yeah.
valuable experience nonetheless.
I mean, like one great example that most people probably don't like is like the Tate brothers. Like I think they like share like all their bank accounts, basically. Not all of them, but like they share a lot of their bank accounts. They are business partners as equals, and like they've built an empire for themselves.
Yeah.
But like, does brotherhoods is blood that bit thicker than water? Whereas if you had a best friend for your life that you consider your brother, like in quotation marks, is it going to be able to withstand the stresses of a business?
Yeah.
But I don't know. But then, but family members even betray themselves. Like you hear
Yeah,
that all the
exactly.
time.
exactly. I think you like the way put it's like is blood thicker than water, and I'd probably say on average
It's
probably.
stained blood.
But that's a good way of putting it as well. But obviously, it depends on an individual basis. You have a shitty family member and a great friend, you know. But yeah, who knows?
Mm. Yeah. Any other points you want to explore?
I think that's good for the episode. This might be our longest episode. To be fair, probably pushing it.
Oh shit! Yeah, I thought we started at 12:30, but it was like. I
Uh,
didn't do the intro. Didn't do the fucking intro, did we?
fuck it. I
I
mean,
missed it.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Sorry guys, 10 episode special. We're changing it up.
Yeah.
No, we'll get back onto that next time. I'll
Yeah.
get the. I had the watch on and I looked at it and I just got chatting about what we're going to talk about. But oh well, I'll do the outro the right way.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
One thing I want to say, we're on 10 episodes, and I'm not sure what the exact numbers were, but I remember hearing someone say like if you start a podcast and you do 10 episodes, then you've already made it further than 90% of people that start a podcast, because usually they quit before that. So,
sure.
it's small still. We're still, not got many subscribers or views or whatever, but I think we're making good progress. Our conversations have been good, and it's been a pleasure. I think actually doing the podcast has kind of helps me to reflect on things myself, like talking about these ideas, kind of forced me to consider: am I actually living out what I believe to be kind of the highest values? And I think it's had a positive impact on me. So thanks.
I completely agree. I've enjoyed every conversation, and it's been enjoyable to see it kind of get a bit more fluid. Fluid. Not fluid. It's a bit weird. It's been enjoyable seeing it get a bit more like conversational rather than like chatting at each other. We're getting better at being able to converse, and it's just nice. And then with that, it becomes a better experience for the listener, but it becomes a better experience for us because we can explore ideas properly, challenge each other, and actually understand what we think about something and what we don't.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Yeah. And on that note,
all right then. Well,
it's the episode.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening. It is 1:20 p.m. Wednesday, the 26th of October, nearly Halloween. Don't forget to go trick or treating. Get those sweeties in, or don't if you want to become a higher man. But thank you all for listening. See you next time.
See ya.